What is sleaze? Sleaze is a subgenre of exploitation cinema characterized by taboo and shocking subject matter, often presented with low-budget aesthetics. These films feature explicit sex, drugs, violence, gore, crime, and some good old-fashioned moral depravity. This is not mainstream media. This is transgressive filmmaking, boldly pushing moral and social boundaries. This is not Mary Poppins.
Eat shit! Filth are my politics. Filth is my life. Take whatever you like.
Yes.
How's this for a center spread?
Ew.
Prime example of sleaze cinema is Street Trash from 1987, an unapologetically grimy horror comedy about a group of homeless people who drink a toxic batch of liquor called Tenafly Viper, causing their bodies to fantastically melt into colorful piles of goo.
Here's to you, pussy.
If you can look beyond the vulgar humor and excessive gore, you will find deeper themes of class struggles, social decay, and a critique on society's neglect and mistreatment of the unhoused.
What's the matter? You can't hold your liquor, huh?
If nothing else, you gotta appreciate those fantastic practical effects. What makes art in cinema so great is their inherent subjectivity. One person's trash might be another's masterpiece. Just as one person's masterpiece can be another one's snooze fest.
I think perhaps you're right.
Simply dismissing these films as bad means overlooking their undeniable creativity, their inventive practical effects, their audacious vision, and their sharp humor. Qualities that set them apart despite their low budgets. And no one embodies this more than the master of sleaze himself, the one and only Frank Henenlotter. Henenlotter is an American film director known for making low-budget exploitation films such as Basket Case, Brain Damage, and the one you might be most familiar with, Frankenhooker, which are some of my favorite examples of the horror comedy genre. And his films all feature wonderfully absurd narratives. Exhibit A, Frankenhooker, which is about a medical school dropout who loses his fiancée in a tragic lawnmower incident and decides to bring her back to life.
Want a date?
Money? No, I don't have any money.
And then there's Basket Case from 1982, which follows a young man carrying a big wicker basket that contains his extremely deformed, formerly conjoined twin brother named Belial, as they seek revenge on the doctors who separated them against their will. And Belial looks and sounds like this. And my personal favorite, Brain Damage, which follows Brian as he comes under the addictive spell of an ancient parasite named Aylmer, with the ability to induce euphoric hallucinations in its host.
Hi.
Despite often being lumped into the horror genre, Henenlotter views himself as an exploitation filmmaker, stating in an interview from 2009, "I never felt that I made horror films. I always felt that I made exploitation films. They have an attitude more than anything, an attitude that you don't find with the mainstream Hollywood productions. They're a little ruder, a little raunchier,
Hold still. This reminds me of St. Louis Arch.
They deal with material people don't usually touch on, whether it's sex or drugs or rock and roll."
Hey! Hey! Love your suit.
Wow, you're beautiful.
Huh?
Beautiful.
You're fucked up, aren't you? Wanna dance?
Henenlotter grew up on the exploitation films of the 60s and 70s. Living in Long Island, he would hop on the train to 42nd Street in Manhattan, a part of the city that was notorious for its neon-lit debauchery.
Now it's a hell den. It's a den. My opinion, they should tear down the whole block and just rebuild it. Thank you.
Where seedy grindhouse theaters sat alongside adult bookstores, peep shows, live sex acts, and a constant haze of crime, drugs, and prostitution.
Smoke, I got joints and bags, nickels and dime bags, gold Columbia smoke.
Henenlotter called it the greatest paradise in the world, an untamed haven where an endless array of horror, exploitation, martial arts, and foreign films played on repeat. It wasn't a matter of what movie will I see, Henenlotter recalled, but more about how many can I see. From a young age, Henenlotter was making homemade horror movies on a Super 8 camera, experimenting with stop-motion animation, crude special effects, and over-the-top storytelling. This laid the foundation for what would become his signature blend of horror and humor. Even then, Henenlotter's drive to make movies stemmed from having fun and a desire to tinker with visual storytelling. He never thought his films would be seen by anyone. His goal was never mass appeal, but rather to create art for art's sake, which is why his films feel so genuine.
I never wanted to be a filmmaker. I, honest to God, never did. I just love movies. I love seeing movies, but I liked tinkering with them. I liked making them, you know, and as just as a, it was just fun, you know. And I would make fairly elaborate ones. I would make, you know, they'd run about an hour, and they would have a magnetic soundtrack, and they were all shot in not Super 8 but regular 8, to date me. And they were never meant to be shown. They were just meant to be made.
And speaking of making art with limited mass appeal, in 1972, Henenlotter made a short film called The Slash of the Knife, which acts as a bizarre educational PSA for the dangers of being uncircumcised.
Got to have a mutant between your legs.
In the varieties, the Madness films are legion. In some cases, a distinct breakdown of locomotor coordination is evident.
I did one that a short called Slash of the Knife. It was a fake sexploitation film allegedly made in 1952 about the horrors of being uncircumcised. And talk about a strange piece. You know, you see what I'm saying? These were not, you know, this isn't somebody who wants to get it, to do this commercially. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, and if you have an aversion to the male genitalia, then Henenlotter's films might not be for you. Considering Henenlotter's early fascination with exploitation films and its deep connection to New York's grindhouse scene, it makes perfect sense that his first feature film, Basket Case, would be set amid the seedy chaos of 1980s Times Square. With a shoestring budget of just $35,000, Henenlotter embraced a DIY, guerrilla-style approach to filmmaking, shooting on the streets with borrowed equipment and a cast made up of local actors, non-actors, friends, and whoever was willing to participate. The film was made in fits and starts, with production halting whenever funds ran dry, and resuming only when enough money was scraped together to continue.
He'd do like enough film to do a scene or two, do a rough cut, and then show it to people and get some more money. And then we'd do another scene, and then over and over and over again. So it went on for quite a while. The filming / fundraising process was simultaneous and ongoing.
We filmed it sporadically because we kept running out of money, so it took place over the course of a year, depending on when we had money. You know, when you film something, they're called dailies because you see the footage you did the next day. Ours were monthlies. You know, it was a disaster, you know. But it also became one of those issues where I had to get it done now. Too much time had been spent. It was, if I wasn't going to accomplish this, I was going to accomplish nothing else. You know, so God damn it, it'll get finished. and it's okay because no one will ever see it.
This piecemeal process not only reflects the resourcefulness required to bring Basket Case to life, but also adds to its raw, unpolished charm, perfectly in line with the gritty world it depicts. The film struggled to find mainstream success upon release, largely due to censorship. Much of the gore and blood were cut, stripping away the over-the-top horror elements that were essential to its dark humor. Without it, Basket Case lost much of its impact, leading to its initial failure.
They decided that it would be a perfect midnight film if it was a comedy. I said, but it is a comedy. And they said, well, you have all this gore in it. I said, that's what makes it a comedy. You know, my intention was, there's no real jokes in the film. Okay, it's a ludicrous idea. I mean, it's a monster in a basket, for Christ's sake. You know, I mean, you're not supposed to take this thing seriously. But what I was playing with was, you didn't know whether the punchline was going to be a joke or blood. And usually, in every case, I thought the blood was a punchline. So they cut that out, and the film just didn't work at all. It was horrible.
Luckily, legendary drive-in movie critic Joe Bob Briggs championed the film, helping the uncut version reach audiences in Texas, where it began to develop a cult following.
Basket Case is the sensitive story of two Siamese twin brothers, and one of them looks like a squashed octopus and lives in a picnic basket that his brother carries around while feeding him Big Macs in a Times Square hotel room. And whenever anybody opens up the basket, they get their face chewed off. So, a romantic comedy for the 80s.
Eventually, the uncut version was screened at New York's Waverly Theater, now the IFC Center, where, to Henenlotter's surprise, it became an instant midnight movie sensation. Long lines formed and screenings continued for years, solidifying its status as a cult classic. The film's home video release only further cemented its legacy, ensuring its place in exploitation cinema history. Basket Case follows Dwayne Bradley, played by Kevin Van Hentenryck, a naive, wide-eyed young man who shows up in Times Square with a large wicker basket that is oddly locked. The highlight of the film is certainly the mystery of what's in the basket, as it piques everyone's interest.
What's in the basket? Easter eggs?
What's in the basket?
Clothes. What's in the basket?
Nothing.
What's in the basket?
My brother.
What's in the basket?
Open it, if you dare.
It's none other than Belial Bradley, Dwayne's murderous, deformed twin. The brothers are on a mission to seek revenge on the doctors who surgically removed Belial from Dwayne's side, against their will when they were teenagers. Dwayne and Belial also have a psychic connection and are able to communicate telepathically.
All right. Okay, yes, I was with a girl.
For Christ's sake, shut up and let me get some sleep!
Belial is such a strange and wonderful character, as he is at once disturbing, horrifying, and quite mean, yet you can't help but feel sympathy for his plight. Again, this is what makes Henenlotter so special. He walks this line of horror, comedy, and drama in a way that feels so genuine. Belial's wonderfully bizarre creature design was created by makeup artist Kevin Haney, who just got done working on the film Altered States, which you can definitely see some of the influence that movie had on Belial's design. The puppet was made of foam, latex, and rubber, and brought to life by a mix of puppetry, stop-motion animation, and practical effects. Close-up shots, clever editing, and off-screen manipulation helped to give the illusion of movement.
I think the makeup budget might have been $500 on my end. So it was really just a lot of patchwork and clever filming. Frank is great. He doesn't, he just works with you and knows the limitations of the budget.
I love how inventive the production team had to be, proving that resourcefulness and creativity can more than make up for budgetary limitations.
The part where we actually dissect Belial from the brother, we actually used hamburger and we packed in hamburger and fake blood, and I think we got some chicken livers from like Price Chopper grocery store upstate. And I think in the movie, the final cut, that one section where they're lifting the puppet off the guy's body, the kid's body, you actually see a plop of hamburger hit the table, and Frank puts in a little, a little splot, sound effect, which works great.
Much like Todd Browning's cult classic Freaks, Basket Case is a transgressive film that confronts society's treatment of people with physical deformities. Basket Case champions societal outcasts while exploring themes of identity, abandonment, and the inescapability of past trauma. Though the story is deeply tragic, Henenlotter never lets it sink into pure bleakness. The film is infused with dark humor and a playful, self-aware tone. This delicate balance is a hallmark of all of his work, as he masterfully blends horror and comedy.
Alone in this cold, cruel world.
In Henenlotter's films, horror is always the driving force of the narrative, with humor serving as a release valve for tension.
What's in the basket? My brother.
Rather than relying on traditional jokes, much of the comedy emerges naturally from the sheer absurdity his characters endure. Conversely, the horror is never too serious or oppressive, and the comedy is never excessive to the point of undermining the horror. It's this equilibrium that makes his films so effective and enduring. Following the cult success of Basket Case, Henenlotter returned in 1988 with Brain Damage, this time with a significantly larger budget that allowed for a more polished production and practical effects.
Brain damage. It will turn you inside out.
Drawing from his own struggles with cocaine addiction, Henenlotter crafted a darkly satirical cautionary tale about dependency and self-destruction. The film follows Brian, a young man who becomes host to an ancient phallic-like parasite named Elmer, or Aylmer, a creature that offers him euphoric highs in exchange for grisly favors, most notably, brains.
This is the start of your new life, Brian. A life without worry or pain or loneliness. A life filled instead with colors and music and euphoria. A life of light and pleasure.
But who are you? What are you?
I am you, Brian. I'm all you'll ever need.
Beyond personal experience, Henenlotter also took inspiration from Faust, incorporating elements of the classic tale of bargaining with the devil. But instead of infinite knowledge, Brian's deal comes with a different temptation. One hell of a high. Brian is played by a young Rick Hurst in his first film role. Hurst would later go on to star in hundreds of episodes of the soap opera General Hospital, but here he delivers a raw and genuine performance, embodying Brian's descent into addiction with remarkable commitment. His youthful willingness to throw himself into the film's bizarre scenarios made him the perfect fit for Henenlotter's wild vision. Brian's character isn't the typical portrayal of a drug addict. He's clean-cut, has a steady job, a girlfriend, and a stable place to live. In fact, Henenlotter initially thought Hurst looked too pretty for the role, and had the makeup team give him a split lip to add a bit more edge. What's particularly unique about Brain Damage is its depiction of addiction not as an immediate downward spiral of misery, but as something initially rooted in pleasure and curiosity. I just love Brian's childlike joy as he chases bright lights and loud music. Henenlotter acknowledges that drug use can start as a pursuit of fun and heightened experiences, rather than just an act of self-destruction. But ultimately, all roads lead to ruin. Another key element that makes this film so effective is its charming yet sinister creature, Elmer. With its comically expressive eyes and brain-like slug body, Elmer is instantly endearing. But it's when he speaks that you're truly hooked.
Yes, we can. We'll do anything I want us to do. You're mine now, Brian. I own you.
Elmer was voiced by the legendary host of Chiller Theater, the cool ghoul John Zackerly, who was uncredited in the film due to being a union actor at the time, while Brain Damage was a non-union production. Zackerly was so enthusiastic about the role that he happily lent his voice without credit. Elmer's smooth voice and vaudeville-like cadence feels oddly out of place, yet works perfectly, adding a layer of dark charm to the character. His playful, almost gentlemanly demeanor makes you forget that this is an evil parasite, manipulating Brian entirely for the selfish pursuit of devouring more brains. And he even sings!
Gander, meander, in search of a goose. What puts the kick in a chicken? The magic in June. It's just Elmer's tune.
Elmer is brought to life through the clever hands of special effects artist Gabe Bartalos, who designed and created the creature with a variety of molds and sizes to ensure lifelike movements and intricate close-ups. Bartalos employed a mix of puppetry, animatronics, and practical effects to give Elmer a tactile, lifelike quality that makes his presence on screen all the more striking and memorable. The detailed craftsmanship behind Elmer's expressive face and fluid motions heightens the sense of realism to the point where you forget you're even watching a puppet. It's this combination of performance, voice, and extraordinary practical effects that cements Elmer as one of Henenlotter's most memorable and unforgettable creations. Another striking element of Brain Damage is its distinct visual style, which amplifies the film's surreal atmosphere. Henenlotter uses clever lighting, particularly blue tones, to give the film an almost dreamlike quality. One of my favorite moments is when Brian starts sinking into a hallucination and gazes up at the ceiling light, which gradually transforms into an eyeball. Vibrant blue water begins to engulf him, pooling around his head. The music complements this sequence perfectly, enhancing the otherworldly experience. It's a striking, beautiful visual representation of how the drug consumes him. Once again, Henenlotter showcases inventive, low-budget filmmaking, capturing the essence of addiction without relying on computer-generated graphics. Brain Damage is a darkly inventive exploration of addiction, self-destruction, and the seductive allure of escapism. It's a brilliant showcase of practical effects, striking visuals, and a story that makes you genuinely empathize with Brian as he becomes increasingly shackled to his addiction. By blending humor with horror, imagination with reality, Brain Damage stands as a testament to Henenlotter's ability to create films that are both bizarre and thought-provoking, while also being an absolute pleasure to watch. In my view, this is Henenlotter at his most accessible, offering a singularly creative vision. Brain Damage has become a movie addiction for me. I'm always thirsty for another dose, or rewatch, at least once a year.
Ready to beg for it, Brian? Ready to crawl across the floor and plead for my juice?
While Brain Damage might be my favorite Henenlotter film, Frankenhooker from 1990 is a close second, and stands out as his most audacious vision. The film is a madcap reimagining of Frankenstein, but with, hookers, infused with 1980s excess, exploitation cinema, and Henenlotter's unique sense of humor. More than just a trashy horror comedy, it's a testament to his talent for blending dark comedy, gore, and sly social commentary into something undeniably original.
Going out?
I'm on my way home, but thanks anyway.
This is Sojourn to Please.
Listen, I'm looking for a very tall, attractive woman. She's purple.
Imagine for a minute if one of the kids from Weird Science never let go of their obsession with creating the perfect woman, studied reanimation under the legendary Herbert West, and then moved to their mom's basement in New Jersey. Well, you'd get Frankenhooker. Henenlotter actually made up the idea for Frankenhooker on the spot during a meeting with producer Jim Glickenhaus. Henenlotter had a script called Insect City that Glickenhaus thought was just not marketable. But could we all please take a minute to imagine what that movie might have been like had it been made? I'm envisioning a batshit crazy mix of Cronenberg's The Fly with the absurd comedy of Joe's Apartment, mashed into a wonderful mess by Henenlotter. Anyway, Henenlotter didn't want the meeting with Glickenhaus to end, so he pulled the idea for Frankenhooker straight out of his ass.
And I don't know where it came from. I said, well, okay, this guy, his girlfriend dies. Jim goes, well, how'd she die? And I go, a lawnmower. You know, so Jim starts laughing. And that's it. And as long as Jim kept laughing, I kept coming up with more stuff for the plot. I really was making it up frantically, you know, like just to keep going because I didn't want the meeting to end in a way. And then he says, and he's laughing, he says, oh, I really like it. What do you got to call it? You know, and real fast the brain's going, Frankenwhore, no, too harsh. Frankenslut, that doesn't play. Frankenprostitute, no. And then Frankenhooker.
Henenlotter also recalled having an incredibly difficult time working with one of the film's producers, someone with whom he can never creatively agree.
My first thought about Frankenhooker is it was the most miserable film I've ever had to make. It was just terrible. It was absolutely awful from beginning to end. Never had an experience like this.
The tension ultimately soured the entire production and created a toxic atmosphere on set. And yet watching Frankenhooker, you never guess it. The movie feels effortless, playful, unhinged, and bursting with creativity. It's a wild ride packed with dark humor and gleeful insanity that defines Henenlotter's best work. That it even exists, let alone became a cult favorite, is a testament to his uncompromising vision and relentless DIY spirit.
And I think it shows a little more of his strength and perseverance. That kind of turmoil doesn't help anything. And Shakira Glickenhaus is probably thrilled to have him in the driver's seat. Now looking back, that kind of stuff he took and rolled with and still made a good film.
Special effects wizard Gabe Bartalos returns after his excellent work on Brain Damage, this time tasked with pushing the envelope even further. In Frankenhooker, Bartalos unleashes a barrage of gleefully grotesque set pieces, including the now infamous sequence in which a group of sex workers violently explode after smoking a hyper-lethal drug called super crack.
This super crack will get the job done a lot quicker and without any pain.
Using puppetry, prosthetics, animatronics, clever editing, and a healthy dose of explosives, Bartalos transforms low-budget limitations into a showcase of outrageous spectacle. Limbs fly, heads burst, and body parts twitch back to life in a fever dream of practical effects that capture the rebellious spirit of Henenlotter's brand of sleaze cinema.
Oh my God!
Although she doesn't have as much screen time as one might expect, Patty Mullen, who plays the titular Frankenhooker, delivers a performance that is both iconic and unforgettable. Her distinct facial expressions, particularly the exaggerated lopsided grin, are burned into the memory of anyone who has seen the film. Mullen's portrayal straddles the line between tragic and hilarious, perfectly embodying the film's satirical tone. While her character is literally stitched together and reanimated by her boyfriend for his own selfish desires, she doesn't remain a passive creation. Instead, Frankenhooker rises from the slab with agency, attitude, and a thirst for revenge, refusing to be controlled by a man. She asserts her independence, flipping the power dynamic and taking matters into her own electrified hands, in a finale that is hilariously satisfying and absurd.
Want a date? You going out?
No thanks. I'm on my way home, but thanks anyway.
Well, look at the lady in purple. What truck hit you?
You looking for some action?
Hey, get your hands off me, babe.
Frankenhooker is Henenlotter at his best. Bizarre, hilarious, and wildly entertaining. Despite its absurd and provocative premise, Henenlotter manages to steer the film away from pure lowbrow antics, instead crafting something clever, satirical, and surprisingly cohesive. It's a true testament to his unique filmmaking and creativity. I can't recommend this one enough. Henenlotter's body of work is infused with sleaze, gore, and unmistakable horror elements, yet also brimming with self-awareness, a satirical voice, and a healthy dose of humor that sets Henenlotter's films apart from simpler trash cinema. His films never feel like they're existing for empty shock value, yet they most certainly will shock you at times. His films also serve as a testament to how budget limitations can fuel innovation. His creature designs, practical effects, and surreal visuals are remarkably inventive. I can guarantee you haven't seen a film quite like the ones created by Frank Henenlotter. After everything I've said about why Frank Henenlotter is such a unique visionary, the truth is, his work is something you really have to experience for yourself. You'll either fall in love with it or quickly decide it's not for you. His films are polarizing in that way. They live in this liminal space where horror, comedy, the absurd and grotesque blend and collide into this wonderful concoction that is Henenlotter's own signature brand of Artful Sleaze.
You know what I mean? It's over, you know? And we couldn't lick it. Well, it was around this time, too, when the crack epidemic really hit New York. And when we were shooting Brain Damage, we were on 33rd Street, and at night, that was Hooker Central. They would work, there was train tracks on the other side of the street. So the hookers would work the cars, and it was incredible. So it was just nonstop hooker traffic all night long. You know, we used to film it from the window, you know, with video. So you go there in the morning, and all the sidewalk filled with used condoms and crack vials. So it was like crunch, crunch. It was horrible. And then you go into the lobby, and there would be a lost little hooker from the night before, stoned out of mind. You'd say, "It's morning, you know, sun's up. Oh, okay, thank you, bye, bye." So I thought super crack would be a great idea, and it was.
This crack shit's killing them. This super crack will get the job done a lot